Alright, it was a dark and stormy night. Actually, it's just a stormy day, and the power could go out at any time, so I thought I'd do some live streaming. I'm working on my app, Vector Clock. If you've ever wanted to know what it looked like, someone working on a app, this is your chance. You're gonna see the behind the scenes work going on here. So yeah, I only have one monitor right now, so occasionally I'm gonna click back and forth on the chat just to see what's going on or if anybody's asking questions or anything, but it's not going to be super interactive, so just be warned about that ahead of time. Yeah, okay, so let's get right into it. So it's been several months since I updated my app last, so I'm incorporating all of that knowledge that I've gained in that period into this latest iteration, and I also had a very specific goal for this particular iteration. But the first thing I want to take care of right off the bat is these little checkboxes, which I built as a visual indicator to show when elements are being toggled. So what happens is when you click on a box, it turns sort of a silver color if it's active, and then turns white if it's inactive. And the problem with this is that it is not very legible, at least in my opinion. And initially I had it red and green, but the reason that I changed it to silver is because these elements all change color when you randomize based on what's selected, so that presented a little bit of a visual problem for me to have these buttons being confused for these, even though there's a very obvious die Unicode glyph in the center. I still kind of wanted it to be more legible, which is why I changed these to silver, but I don't really think that works. So what I'm doing is going here into my code and changing all of the silvers to black. I could just do a find and replace, but that's kind of risky, because you never know what else might be silver that I don't want to change. But I think that's gonna do it because there's only so many buttons. So this is all like this is the web version of my app. Just to clarify, this isn't the same as my Universal Windows Platform version. So this one's actually newer. It's 0.25. The last version was 0.24. So what I'm saying is this text file is an HTML file that is all the code for the clock. It's all written in JavaScript and CSS and HTML. So when I change something in the text file, it changes it in the app, and that's reflected in the actual version online. So see, it looks like I outthought myself here. Yeah, like I said, it's been so long since I worked on this code that I don't even remember how everything works. So the problem here is that I have 3 states instead of 2 for the buttons over here. They should start out black, so that means I actually need to change them in the interface first, which God only knows where that is. I don't remember any of this code where I hit everything. I try to be well organized, so I can usually puzzle it out in just a few minutes after I've started looking through the code. Okay, so I'm just gonna type in silver, and that should help me find out where it is. Yeah, okay, so each button has an element that's pre-changed. So I am gonna do a find and replace, because this is just gonna be faster. So I'm gonna change silver to black. I'm gonna do this selectively, so I can check each one and make sure that I'm not screwing up anything else. Another risk too would be if I change this to black and there's a whole bunch of other elements that are black, then that's gonna really screw me up later on. So now this should update now. Yeah, okay. So these are all black now when they're selected and white when they're not. So I think that's a lot more clear as an indicator of what's checked and what isn't. So that's kind of what I was looking for. The only problem is that sometimes these color boxes are gonna turn black. Like here's an example right here. So that can create a little bit of like user interface confusion. But I feel like this is pretty clear at the moment. And I can always go back and use some other indicator for these boxes, like maybe you just have like a check mark appear in there, or you know, something more standard or conventional. I built this interface from the ground up, so it's all like pretty custom and subjective. I didn't spend a lot of time researching user interface design. I just kind of did what I thought made sense. So that's why there's some of these kind of weird subjective design choices, but I think they work well enough. Okay, so the actual project that I was wanting to work on today for my clock update is a new theme. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So each interface element has its own like pull down menu with different options. And so for example, like I can change the hand, I can change the AM and PM, I can change 24 hour. Huh, that did not work. That's kind of curious. For some reason it didn't activate. That's weird. It did the second time I selected it, but not the first. Yeah, so every interface element, doesn't matter what it is, they all can be individually configured to create an extreme amount of diversity and randomness. And of course they can also be turned off too. Additionally, each of these options is part of a theme. So for example, if I were to pick the same option for everyone, like let's pick Babylonian for all of these. They don't all have particular options for those for it to be the theme. You would just turn those off. 24 hours digital. They're not part of the theme, nor is AM PM. But pretty much everything else is. However, failed to mention, Babylonian doesn't have a number or a indicator tick mark theme, but you get the idea. There's like a hand and an AM and a PM usually, and quite frequently, like for example, I should have picked Ray because it actually has a almost full theme. So if you pick all of the ones that are the same, you get a specific theme, like Ray. Um, but what I want to do today is actually something completely different. In other words, it's something that doesn't really fit into any of the other themes. And it's a new theme, but it's also a totally different type of theme. Because pretty much all of them fall into this template where there's an AM and a PM, there's a 24-hour, and then there's all the tick marks, and then there's a hand. Pretty much everything else stays the same in the clock. However, there are a few exceptions. Let me show you. Like the light big numbers, which I actually discontinued this particular theme because I found out it was pretty much useless on a 24-hour display. But as you can see, it's a completely different convention than the standard AM-PM dichotomy. It's just one big number set. This was designed for high visibility from a distance. So like if you have the clock up on a wall or something on a display, that you can read it really easily from a distance, but like I said, it didn't actually work. So this new theme that I'm working on, or demi theme I guess you would call it, is a true military time in the AM and PM slots. So what that means is that instead of having an AM and a PM, it's just going to have one big number set that goes all the way around. That's the same number set as the smaller number set around the middle. And then there's going to be a corresponding smaller number set of AM and PM for the center. So in a sense, it's just a reversal of the conventional display. Let me change this to just normal style. Yeah, so that's the intention of this particular session, and if you follow along, you'll get to see how the whole clock works, because I'm going to have to change all of the entries for each design element as I go along. Here's the changelog that I hid in the code base. So let's see when the last update was that I did here. 2018-5/29, so yeah, quite a few months ago. So this is version 0.25, and I gotta change this date because it's actually the 15th. I started this a couple days ago, but I never actually got around to making the video, so now I'm gonna try to do that. And I'm really new to live streaming, so this live stream may totally suck, and I apologize for that. But I'm kind of teaching myself how to live stream, so it's going to be a while before I get good at it, if ever. So it looks like I got one viewer. Thanks for watching. Uh-oh, bad video settings. Alright, I need to change this. Keyframe frequency. God, this is so complicated, I swear. Okay, okay. I had to change this the other day, so I think, yeah, keyframe interval 4 seconds or less. Try that. Yeah, you also get to learn how to set up live streaming by watching this video. Fast, high. Let me know if the quality is any good, because I changed this around a little. I'm going to try super fast, and that may make it really hard to see what's going on, but I think it'll improve the stream health. Not really sure. 5.6 seconds. That's weird. Hopefully that will solve itself after a while. Anyway, back to the work at hand. So I do all my visual asset editing in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. It's actually kind of an old version. Version 14, which actually I think is a great version. How do I get rid of this? Okay, that's kind of annoying. I can't. Escape doesn't work. Ugh, I'm early enough to like force quit Illustrator. Sorry about the technical difficulties here. Alright, you can go away, Illustrator. Yeah, so the trials and tribulations of showing people what version of Illustrator you're using. Anyway. Okay, so this vector clock, all the assets are what are called scalable vector graphics, which is, for those of you who don't know, is like this super cool way to create illustrations for the web that uses numbers and coordinates and data basically, instead of like if you have a JPEG or a GIF or a PNG file where it's like static. The cool thing about SVG is it's dynamic, so it can be transformed in real time based on transformations, which I'll show you. I have a cool one on my website down at the bottom. This is an SVG right here, and it's animated, so it rotates just based on code settings, and it's just like one line of SVG. That's probably the coolest thing about SVG is the data savings, which doesn't sound like a big deal, because like JPEG compression is pretty good, but if you can display an image in, 100 bytes versus 100 kilobytes, that adds up over time. Every time somebody clicks on that image or that image is displayed, you're saving like 10 times the data. So it adds up, and I don't know, it's cool also because it's scalable. Let me give you a demonstration of that. You can scale SVG to any size and it doesn't lose any clarity. Like if you did this to a JPEG or a PNG file or whatever, it would get really pixelated when it got big and illegible when it was small. But with SVGs, it doesn't matter how big it is. It'll stay the same level of sharpness. In fact, see, I don't remember if there's a way to do this. There's a way to do this on my phone, but not on Windows, where you can actually zoom it in on the indefinitely onto any section of the clock and see it zoomed in. But it doesn't work on Windows, unfortunately. Okay. Alright, let's just check the live stream health really quick. Yeah, okay, so it's orange now. So it's a little bit better streaming quality, but hopefully it's not so pixelated that it's not even perceptible. That should be okay. I think you guys will be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so back to Illustrator. Yeah, so some of these objects are actual editable fonts. Like this is a typeface, so like I could just go in and change the number like that if I wanted to. But other objects or other elements of the design are custom illustrations. Like let's find block Where are you? Well, even this one that I was showing you before, this is a custom element that I created using the pen tool, which is sort of Illustrator's way of for freehanding stuff. And you're going to see how that works in a minute, because I'm going to have to use that probably for this new theme. So everything about vector clock was designed to be ultra precise, like way more precise than a standard clock. So for example, the position of every single one of these numbers is mathematically derived. It's not arbitrary. If you take a look and you see how these are positioned, the first number is locked into the grid, as are all the design elements, the tick marks, the glyphs, the hand. So this is like a grid-based layout. However, obviously because it's an analog clock face, which is round, you have to do a little bit of high-level math to get the positions right. So when these are rotated, they're rotated twice to be positioned as accurately as possible. If you were to draw a circle, a perfect circle through all these numbers, and then check the center points, they would align with that perfect circle. This is really important to me for many reasons, but I'd just like to say, because I created this clock to be sort of the pinnacle of legibility for time in a analog digital hybrid, I went out of my way to make sure that there was a level of precision that was beyond normal for clocks. And that has a lot to do with my personality and probably my autism. And I have dyslexia, so I've always struggled with the legibility of clocks, especially analog clocks, because they're not intuitive. You have to learn how to read an analog clock, and then they're extra confusing because they have an AM and a PM and the 12-hour repetition. So this clock kind of eliminates that confusion, at least for me. I want to do something extra special here at the top, which is going to really complicate matters for me, but I feel like it's something I have to do. And that is, I'm going to create two numbers, two sets of numbers at the top with a line that goes through them. And let me show you something here. To create a slash, the standard method would be to create a line and then to use stroke to change the thickness of the line. However, every object in my clock, because I want to make it completely configurable for the web and the app, it needs to be an actual three-dimensional, or in this case two-dimensional object. So that means I can't use stroke. I have to make an actual solid object and then rotate it. It's actually the opposite of the direction I wanted. Yeah, this is the one of lovely things that happens to you when you have dyslexia. Is I could have clicked the preview box, but I wasn't thinking that quickly. You get everything turned around in your head. Right is left, left is right, etc. So you end up having to do twice the work a lot of the times. But so here's the deal. Two boxes for two character sets. 24, which is one. And it'll change this to Source Code Pro. That's an Adobe font that I really like because it has excellent topography, and it was designed by the talented people who work at Adobe. So you know it's professional grade. Source Code Pro is different than Source Sans Pro, I think it is the regular. Yeah, Source Sans Pro is the non-code version. The code version is designed specifically for coding. So like for certain characters where there would normally be ambiguity like 0, there's a little dot in the middle so that you know it's a 0 instead of an O. Yeah, see, very clear. This is also true with the L character. A lot of times a capital I and a lowercase l will look exactly the same in a typeface, so they added this little swoop down here, and then let's see the I. Yeah, anyway, you don't have to worry about confusion or ambiguity between specific characters in the typeface because of the fact that it's for coding instead of for just regular text. So that's one of the good reasons to use this for like numbers on a clock, like I'm using it for, because it's sort of further designed to limit ambiguity. I should be able to get this up to 48, so I'm clearly need to change my text box size. Illustrator really is just an amazing piece of software. Yeah, so clearly it's a challenge to do what I'm trying to do here for this top number set because, well, you can see it's sort of going over into the other numbers zone. So I'm really not going to be able to use 60-point type, which is what would have been my preference since it's standard with the other type size. But the reason I'm doing this, the reason there's a slash and there's two numbers, I'm sure some people will have already figured this out, is because there's actually a very strange and peculiar issue with 24-hour time faces, or clock faces, and that is that, that's curious, should be right on grid. That is that the top number position exists in sort of a dual state, which this will blow your mind because a lot of people don't know anything about this, but it's really fascinating. So when you get up to 12 o'clock on a conventional face, and in this case on a 24-hour clock it's 24, it never actually reaches 24. So to put 24 up there is actually false because it's never 24 o'clock ever. It can only go to 23, 59, 59, etc., you know, for however many levels up to the picosecond or whatever. So 24 is actually false, and yet on the other hand, for the military, it's often displayed as 00. So you have sort of this dual state, one which is incorrect, another which makes no sense really, but is better than nothing. So what I'm trying to do here is capture that duality just for the top number to further decrease ambiguity for the specific application of this particular theme, which is for military use or medical too. It's kind of military time, you know, is just become common vernacular for the 24-hour time system. You know, in Europe and in lots of other parts of the world that are more civilized than the United States, the it's just the time that you use. It's not like a special thing. But as you can see, this presents quite the layout challenge because I'm trying to shove twice the numbers into the same amount of space. In addition, I have this strong diagonal element, which is a little too strong, as not really working for me as a slash, because it's kind of just forcing me to put my numbers farther and farther off to the sides or up and down, and it's not working out. So there are many different ways that I could organize this information. I have considered stacking them on top of each other and putting a horizontal bar instead of a diagonal bar, which that may actually be a better solution. So this is kind of like where the fun part for me is in design and programming and layout and stuff. This also allows me to make a much thinner rule, which I can't say I'm displeased by, since the other rule was kind of a little too thick. I'm going to temporarily turn off the standard there we go, the standard number set, so I can see what I'm doing here. This helps with layout clarity a little. And I always end up zooming out and zooming in. You can see right now that looks horrible because it's like way towards the top, which is why I usually end up toggling these on and off. God. Believe it or not, I'm still a little sick, so I'm not like at the top of my game here. I will always use the pre-existing numbers because they're kind of my master as the orientation element. So the center point is right there at the intersection of these two grid lines. So that is where I'm going to be putting my my new element. So unfortunately, this rule here is presenting a real problem because it's not grid compliant. There's actually a way to change that, and this is kind of a cool trick for changing document settings, or preferences in this case, in order to create a better working environment for heightened precision when you're working on something like this. So what I did there was I added more grid line spacing just by doubling it. And what that allows me to do is then create the same thickness of a rule, but in a position that is now centered along with the original grid line. And now if I want to, I can just change that back. Kind of tedious, but once you change it, then you don't really need to mess with it again. So you can see this is not grid compliant any longer with the current grid, but it stays in position even though snap to grid is turned on. If I try to move this, it will actually move to a different position and realign with the grid. So basically I'm not going to touch it unless I plan on rotating it, which I may, depending on how this looks. So here's something that's always really annoyed the hell out of me about typefaces. And if you take a look at the spacing here, you see this red line here down on the bottom within the box. That's the baseline. And as you can see, the space between the number and the bottom of the surrounding box and then the space between the top and the surrounding box are completely different. So in other words, these are not centered within the bounding box, which is really annoying if you're trying to lay something out precisely, because the distance between, even though the bounding boxes are centered perfectly right now, the distance between the bottom of this character in the rule and the top of this character in the rule are different, dramatically different. It's like obviously different. Yeah, so this is looking a little better. The thing that I don't like about this, and that makes it a little bit confusing, is that it looks kind of like a fraction or like a mathematical equation, which is why I wanted the slash instead, because even though slashes are also evocative of math equations or fractions, they're a little bit more versatile than just a horizontal rule, which really does seem to be more expressive for reasons that honestly I can't really fathom. Another option is a vertical rule, and either rotating the two number sets to either side, like I can just give you an example of this. Oh, God, come on. Yeah, that does not look good. But you get what I'm saying. And then I could have 24 vertically and 0, 0 vertically. That's another option. However, my original vision of the diagonal line, I think, is what I want to work with, if possible. So I'm going to, well, okay, here's one little annoying side effect. If I rotate this rule, then I'm not going to be able to scale it horizontally in a precise way. So I need to kind of guess how much space I'm going to need before I rotate it. I mean, all this stuff can be undone. However, I prefer to get things right the first time if possible. So this is looking better. I definitely feel like I'm going to have the space to work this in the way I want it to now. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but sometimes things just tend to work based on arbitrary changes that you make. And I want to make sure that these are both centered precisely within the context of the numbers behind. So I'm checking to make sure that the offsets are symmetrical. Normally I would just count off the nudges, but I don't do that when I'm live streaming, apparently, because I'm too busy thinking and talking to count. Just kind of funny. So there's like several different ways to calculate an offset, but actually I think what I'm going to do is just reset it and then count the nudges, because that actually makes more sense. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is kind of curious how, even though these are exactly the same theoretically in terms of the character width and the bounding box size, the 0 here is much closer to the, or farther away from the slash than the 4 because of the trailing parts of the number. But as it turns out, this looks pretty okay to me. I'm also kind of debating rotating the numbers, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Like this, exactly. Because that's gonna still be legible, but it's gonna take up a diagonal form factor. I'm gonna just experiment with this and see if I like how it looks. Yeah, that's gonna look kind of a little too weird, I think. But you never really know until you hide the original element behind. Well, that's a really important aspect of any kind of layout or design. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just having really mixed feelings about this whole concept of the 24/00. I mean, this is where really the professionalism, I think, comes into graphic design. Oh God, I'm just gonna undo that rotation. Because this is where you start to get creative. Up until this point, I've just been kind of procedurally pursuing the steps to achieve my goal. However, like, if I'm not satisfied with the conventional sort of easy options, that's when I'm going to start experimenting. And one other idea I had was basically overlapping the letters on or numbers on top of each other, like this. It doesn't look so good with the bar in there. Also the fact that it's not letting me manipulate them all. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty illegible. However, if I was to explode these characters and create a custom character, it could conceivably be possible to create something that's legible, but yeah, I'm really kind of, I've reached a point here in this particular design process where I feel like I'm not really able to make progress with the idea I was pursuing, so I'm just gonna like table that for now and do the rest of the procedural stuff and get it out of the way. And lucky for me, the procedural stuff is gonna be really easy because I already have the AM and the PM band. All I have to do is copy and paste those into my new layers, so I'm gonna copy the AM, paste it into my military AM, and then ungroup so that I can delete the one that's sort of in contention. And the AM is basically good to go. There's no reason to group it yet until I finish that top number. I'm going to change the color just to set it apart so I won't be confused and think that I'm working with another scheme at some point. So it's just going to be black for now. PM. Alright, I'm going to be smart and paste it. And then change the color so I don't have to. Yeah, okay. So, alright. So the only thing I'm changing here is the numbers. It's really easy, so just gonna be copying the inner band, basically, 13, 14, etc. Whoops. Little mistakes like that are what can really screw you over when you're working on a clock face. I found that out the hard way a couple times. This isn't my first clock, this is just my first app. So, as it turns out, this was actually a good idea to just kind of put that off, because now that I have more of the numbers filled in, it's giving me a much better picture and idea of how this new number or group, I guess it's kind of technically it's like a glyph since it's two numbers and an object that's going to form like a new kind of expressive character. I think that actually kind of works the way it is now. I mean, it's passable, it's just not like, oh, this is kind of curious. Oh, these are all Source Sans Pro. Okay. So I'm glad I noticed this. Yeah, I forgot the default typeface that I used when I made the first version of this clock was Source Sans instead of source code. So in other words, these numbers are not gonna work the way that they are for the new theme that I'm building. But see how easy that was? Just fixed them all, just like that. Yeah, the only problem is that now they take up more space because the source code is a fixed width versus the source sans, which is not fixed width. Another thing that I was kind of debating is whether or not I should make them block or black characters, because any kind of military application, like the highest level of legibility is important. What the hell? I don't know why it thinks those are all different or something. Illustrator has weird little glitches like this. Yeah, so bold, that's pretty dark, that's pretty legible. Black, even more dark and legible. I think, yeah, the black is really doing it for me. The only concern I would have would be the proximity of the zero center dot to the wall, which could be perceived as an 8, like if your eyes were full of tear gas and shrapnel. You know, I like to think about all possibilities. Yeah, that dot in the zero is actually working against me here. I'm not sure what to do about it. Well, actually, there's one thing I can do about it. In fact, there's one thing that I will do about it, and that's when I vectorize all these, I'm just going to delete the dots out of the zero characters. That's one of the really nice things that Illustrator lets you do. Another possibility that I've been considering is using Courier, which is, there is no Courier per se anymore, there's Courier New. And this is actually a typeface that was designed for the military. and it's fixed width, so you don't have to worry about any spacing problems. I don't know if I like the aesthetics of it. I mean, what do you think? Just looking back and forth between the AM and the PM side. Is one really more legible than the other? I'm gonna check the chat and see if anybody's. I got one person watching right now. The bad video settings. I don't know how to change this because I thought I changed this configuration and it's not really. Peter Francis has been chatting. Don't know what Zara is, but I will look it up. Actually, let me do that right now. World time travel clock, maybe? I don't know, if I'm looking at the totally wrong thing, feel free to fill me in, Peter, if you're still watching. Anyway, yeah, I don't know which one of these really looks better, more legible. I mean, I do honestly feel like the Courier is a little more legible. The one character in Courier that I've never liked is the 6 and the 9, because if you'll notice, it's got like sort of this weird lopsidedness to the connection here, the connection point. I actually like the original Courier better because it was sharp versus round edges. Courier New is actually kind of an inferior typeface. And the 4 also kind of problematic because the downward point sort of not and what I'm trying to say is it's too close to the crossbar, so and I think this is a problem they had with the old typewriters too, way back when, is that the ink could sometimes like smudge down there. The only defining characteristic of the 4 is that angular slash. Other than that, if you got ink smudged, you would have no idea what character that was. There's another typeface that's also like a machine readable typeface. Console. That's not it. But it's similar. It's like the one you see on checks, like down at the bottom. It's designed to be magnetically readable. Man, I really wish I had the original Courier. Maybe I used to have it a long time ago. And then I guess it got kind of pushed out by Courier New. But yeah, you see the difference here is the angularity. Like even the numbers are better. That didn't help. So for some reason when I zoomed in on it, it actually got farther away. Let's see if I can just find a download for this. That was dyslexia right there. Yeah, because if I'm going to use a Courier typeface, I'm going to use the original. Manufacturer is Courier. Oh my god. Who knows if this is even the original, you know what I mean? Ugh. And I'm going to see if I can just find the original. Font Geek. I swear to God, this is like such a scam, like normal. Yeah, I need like the source here. That's not very useful. But the main mistake they made with the new Courier is they rounded off all the edges, which like looks better on screens, but it doesn't work for typewriters. Like this is not even Courier. What the hell? This is like Arial. Ugh. It kind of helps to be a font nerd. I mean, I'm pretty much a nerd of everything, but here we go. This is more like my speed. Microsoft might actually have something. This is kind of funny, actually. Vector fonts and screen fonts are not listed. Well, that's something I didn't know. I thought there was a true type version of the original Courier. Here we go. Adobe has a... Maybe Adobe owns the original Courier. Man, I'm really falling down the rabbit hole here. I think I opened up a can of snakes. Designed by Howard Kettler. How can they take credit for this? This was like a... Courier was designed during like the 40s or something for typewriters for the military. I don't... Ugh, I should have clicked on the Wikipedia article. I don't even know anything about... Well, that's not very useful. Prestige and Courier. According to this, he designed 2 types. Yeah, that's just a basic... this is useless. And like, it doesn't tell you where to download it, does it? I can add it to a web project. Activate font. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna download. Okay, it's time to go to Wikipedia. I need to learn about Courier. Did I even spell this right? Here we go. Oh wow, it was Howard Bud Kettler. 1919? What? Yeah, that was a long time ago. Holy shit. Created for IBM's typewriters. Slab serif, huh? Installed on most... that's what I thought. Public domain. $1955. Screenplays. Interesting. Yeah, here we go. Use these United States Departments start. Ugh, I can't talk and read at the same time apparently. Yeah, modern legible. Although it looks so old now, it's like a used for vintage purposes. It could have been called messenger. That's kind of cool. Letter can be just an ordinary messenger. It can be the courier, which radiates dignity, prestige, and stability. Interesting. /0, huh? Let's see, where's that? No, not there. Courier Prime? Interesting. Dark Courier? Well, this is curious. I haven't gotten any closer. This is an interesting. State Department bans courier. Yeah, okay, so I don't know what to put in here, except maybe if I use the name of the creator, I'll get some more legitimate entries. Like, he's dead. Why have a bio? And like, he didn't just die yesterday. He died in 1999. He's been dead for a really long time. Try, buy, and download, huh? LT, what is like not actually the same? Linotype. What? $35? It's in the public domain. God, you guys are assholes. Font foundries are such a scam, I swear to God. There's very few of them that are actually worthwhile. As of February 1st, 2004, the standard typeface for all official State Department correspondence is to be set in New Times Roman, not Times New Roman, but actually it was Times New Roman. It was a sick. That means an error. 14 reported the 14-point type. Reported the Associated Press. The previous standard font, Courier New 12 point. What? Courier New? They were using Courier? They were using New Courier instead of the original Courier? Has been banned from further use as obsolete. The three exceptions to this mandate are telegrams, treaty materials, and blah blah blah. Interesting. Okay, I think I'm having some more thoughts here. Courier fonts. Let's try to true type. Oh, here is supposedly a Courier font. Okay, let's see if we can find out any information about this. all type. Well, that doesn't sound very... Yeah, this doesn't look like the actual courier to me. For one thing, it's like way bold. So yeah, this devolved from a live stream about coding into a strange exploration of the courier typeface. Alright, IBM. IBM created it, so maybe you can get the original. Oh yeah, true type's one word. That would be awesome if I could download it from IBM. But this is just my fonts. Ugh. Courier new, Courier 10, Prestige. Alright, that was the other font created by that same guy. Wasn't it? Yeah. $35. I just can't believe this. Like, people are charging money for a public domain font. Wow, this is going back. Does it have courier in here? This might be a little too old school. Oh, these are kind of cool though. Fortunately, courier is not listed. Oh my god. Ugh. That was freaking useless. Most of these search algorithms are just rife for abuse. People so easily are able to crack them. Like, what the hell? Variants? I don't want variants, I want the original. Well, at least you can't accuse me of not being dedicated. I just know there's got to be somewhere out there somebody has uploaded the original Courier. Oh God, what a jackass! Like, talk about link jacking. Ugh. Mm. Ugh, and that's it. I'm like accepting the word new because it's pissing me off so much. Oh, we know it's public domain. PDF, I don't think so. Derivatives. Like, it's public domain. Why isn't the original available? Why would I want to download derivatives? Ugh. Courier font SVG? Oh, this is like the... Yeah, that's useful. Thanks, Wikipedia. Thanks for nothing. Okay, sounds promising. Apparently it's never going to load. This is probably the same. Oh yeah, it's the same one I downloaded earlier, which is fake in like a bold version. Ugh. I'm actually tempted to take a look on one of my old XP computers and seeing if they actually have Courier installed. Yeah, Dark Courier. That's what that free one is that's available. Thought so. Well, this is basically useless and not getting me anywhere, so. Alright, think I'm gonna stop that pointless pursuit of Courier and get back to the design process, because we can use Courier New as a stand-in for now, as irksome as it is. Yeah, because I'm pretty much sold on using Courier, and I think it would just be kind of a nice nod to military time. What the hell? Why did it make that non-bold? That was weird. Illustrator has some weird quirks. Oh, come on. Bold black. Interesting. It was like, you know, typeface designers were like, you know, bold just isn't bold enough. We need black. And then they created this new type designation. So there's bold, italic, and black now. Just kind of nice for some applications. Yeah, no, I'm getting a strong thumbs up vibe off of the Courier. How long have I even been live streaming for? It seems like hours. An hour and 15 minutes, so I don't know, maybe it's time to call it quits for now. I think I've wasted enough of everybody's time browsing around the internet for Courier Original, but yeah, I'm gonna sign off pretty soon, but trust me, by the time I make the next live stream video, I'm gonna have that fucking typeface. And I certainly am not gonna pay $35 for a public domain copy. Yeah, so thanks for watching and being tortured by my inanity and my extremely autistic psychosis. Have a good